Looking for magic cards? At flipsidegaming.com you can now use the promo code LVD to get a 10% discount on orders over $10 while supporting the channel at the same time. Hello and welcome to another modern gameplay video. Today we're taking a look at 5-color Slivers, a synergistic creature aggro deck featuring the Sliver creature type, and of course Slivers are known to share their abilities with their friends. Looking at Sinew Sliver, a 2-mana 1/1, giving all Sliver creatures +1/+1 including itself, so the more Slivers we have in play, usually the better. So let's take a look at our entire deck list, starting out with our 1-drops, where we have the full 4 copies of either vial, since we do have a lot of creatures, especially on 2 mana, that we wouldn't mind vialing in, since having those creatures at instant speed and being uncounterable is very useful against some more controlling decks, and also just being able to empty your hand very quickly is what we want to be doing, so we can get as many Slivers in play as soon as possible. Then we have the full 4 copies of Gale Rider Sliver, 1 mana for a 1/1 Sliver, giving Sliver creatures we control flying, and you'll also notice a small difference in templating between the newer Slivers from M14 and the older ones, since the newer ones from M14 only affect creatures we control, whereas the old Sliver templating also affects opposing Slivers, so if your opponent has something like a Mutavault in play for example, then they might get the abilities from some of your Slivers as well, so that's something to watch out for. Then moving on to our 2-drops, we have a whole bunch of mana accelerants, the full 4 copies of Mana Weft Sliver, 2 mana for a 1/1, and Sliver creatures we control have the ability to tap and add 1 mana of any color to our mana pool, so kind of like Birds of Paradise. And then we also have a 1-off Gemhide Sliver to complement our Mana Weft Slivers, and it has the same ability but the old templating, so also affects opposing Slivers. Then we've got 3 copies of the Fusion Sliver with an additional copy in the sideboard to protect our creatures from removal, since whenever a Sliver creature we control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, counter that spell or ability unless the controller pays 2 generic mana. Then we have a 1-off Sentinel Sliver giving our creatures Vigilance, also starts out as a 2/2, so a little bit bigger than some of our other 2-drops. Then we've got the full 4 copies of Leeching Sliver, 2 mana for a 1/1, saying whenever a Sliver we control attacks, defending player loses 1 life, so essentially adds 1 more power to all our Slivers, and also helps us beat opposing Warships, for example, which can otherwise be a powerful sideboard card against creature strategies. Then we've got the full 4 copies of Sinew Sliver, 2 mana 1/1, giving all our Slivers +1/+1, so nice Anthem effect. And then we've got Predatory Sliver, which does the same, but only affects our Slivers. Then moving up to our 3-drops, we've got the full 4 copies of Sedge Sliver, a 2/2 creature that gives all our Slivers +1/+1 as long as we control a swamp, and for 1 black mana we can regenerate each Sliver, so another great way to protect our creatures from removal spells. And then we also have 2 copies of Blur Sliver, giving all our Slivers haste. And then to top of our curve, we've got the full 4 copies of Collected Company, since we are a creature deck after all. And then our mana base, we've got 2 copies of Mutavault, which can also turn into a 2/2 creature with all creature types, including of course Sliver. Then we've got 1 copy of Urborg, which turns all our lands into swamps in addition to their other types, so very useful in combination with Sedge Sliver. We've got some Shock lands, a Breeding Pool, and an Overgrown Tomb that we can search up with our Verdants. And then we've got 1 basic forest and 1 basic swamp in case of Blood Moons or in case of Path to Exile or Field of Ruin, making us search up a basic land. And then we've got 12 5-color lands, including Unclaimed Territory, naming Sliver, 4 copies of Cavern of Souls, which makes our Slivers uncounterable as well, and then the full 4 copies of Sliver Hive, which is also a great mana sink, since for 5 mana and tapping Sliver Hive we get to make a 1/1 Sliver token that of course will soak up all the abilities of other Slivers we control. So that's the main deck. Looking at the sideboard, we've got some copies of Relic of Progenitus against graveyard decks, Damping Sphere against Storm and Tron decks. We've got another Diffusion Sliver against spot removal heavy decks. Then we've got 2 copies of Warping Whale as a pretty versatile card, and we can cast it thanks to our many colorless sources. We've got 2 Mutavaults, and then the 12 5-color lands that can also tap to make 1 colorless mana. And then we've got 3 copies of Dismember as removal, 2 copies of Harmonic Sliver to blow up artifacts and enchantments. It's not a May ability, so we do have to be a little bit careful that it doesn't blow up our own Ether Vials, but it's usually not a very big problem. And then 2 copies of Siphon Sliver to give all our Slivers lifelink, which is great against the burn decks. So that's the deck. Now let's jump into the games and see how the deck does. Alright, we're on the draw, and this hand seems pretty decent. We've got a turn 1 Vial, Collected Companies, a Curve Topper, and some mana acceleration with the Mana Weft. So let's go ahead and Territory, naming Sliver, and play Vial. Opponent with a turn 1 Seachrome Coast. Could be a Humans deck, could be Spirits perhaps. And there we see Cavern of Souls, naming Spirits, alright. The Spirit matchup is going to be interesting, both decks doing very similar things. And there's Supreme Phantom. Alright, let's see here. Do we want to play a Mana Weft or a Predatory? I think we Mana Weft first. Give us that mana boost. And then next turn we can unload most of our hand. And if we pick up a land, we might also be able to company. Nothing is getting countered this game. Do they have the Drogskol Captain? There it is. So, giving +1/+1 and hexproof to other spirits. Take 2 in the air. So finding our Gale Rider Sliver is also going to be pretty important this game. Otherwise we won't be able to block their spirits easily. The second vial doesn't do a whole lot for us here. So I think we prefer just playing the more expensive Sedge Sliver at the moment. And then vial either Diffusion if they try and kill something, but most likely just Predatory. It's going to be a second Supreme Phantom, so opponent getting in for 7, and there's a Sunpetal Grove, so next turn they might have their own company. So this is just a race, and definitely one we could lose here. Especially if our opponent has another +1/+1 effect to all their creatures, we would be dead in the skies next turn. And we'll keep our vial at 2, I think. And alright, there's Gale Rider Sliver, that's what we needed. So, won't be able to flash it in, so our opponent's gonna see it coming, but that's okay. So I think the plan is just to play Gale Rider, and then stay back with all our creatures. If they try and make an attack, we have a bunch of blockers out, and we can still tap for mana to cast Company. Don't want to Company right now, even though that would play around Spell Queller, just because we want our creatures back to block. And then we have a surprise Predatory Sliver to boost up our creatures as well. And if they don't attack us, we can just end of turn Company. Hope they don't have the Spell Queller, I guess. Or we could wait. Alright, a third Supreme Phantom. It's pretty good. Of course, we do still have Regeneration up on our Slivers as well. So we can also just chum block and regenerate, so they're not getting past our flyers here. And Selfless Spirit to make everything indestructible. Alright, let's see what they do. So if we vial in Predatory, then we can make some reasonable blocks here, helping us take down Drogskol Captain or one of the Supreme Phantoms. Of course, I can just sacrifice Selfless Spirit, but we're not losing too much in the process. We only have 3 black mana, so we can only block with 3 creatures, so we will take a little bit of damage, but that's okay. So we can block like this, and then just regenerate 3 times. Would we rather kill the Supreme Phantom or the Drogskol? Probably the Drogskol. And our opponent's just gonna sack the Selfless Spirit as expected. Otherwise we could have also tried to double block Supreme Phantom, see which one they assign combat damage to first, and then regenerate accordingly. Alright, so we get to untap. Still gonna keep Vial at 2, I think. And a Sinew Sliver's not bad. I think we'll just play the Sinew Sliver and then keep up instant speed Diffusion Sliver for protection. And then end of turn we can collect Company. And then we can maybe start making some more aggressive attacks afterwards. If our opponent just passes a turn with 4 mana up, do we Company? Would be bad if they have a Spell Queller, so we might want to be patient there. Alright, another Drogskol Captain. They still don't have any great attacks here, since we can just block everything and double block 1 creature, and a Noble Hierarch. So they're probably just gonna pass a turn here, and hopefully we can find some more +1/+1 type effects with the Company. Also gotta be careful that our opponent doesn't kill the Gale Rider Sliver with a Path to Exile, otherwise we lose all the flyers and we would die instantly. So finding a backup Gale Rider would not be bad. Opponent passes, all Company, and finds Mana Weft and Sinew, and I guess we'll vial in the Diffusion Sliver here. Sadly we don't have a Sliver Hive as a mana sink in play here, otherwise that would be pretty useful. And now I guess we'll put Vial up to 3 and find Sentinel Sliver. That's actually a great draw here, since now we can play offense and defense. Although offense might still be somewhat limited since they have some good blocks on us, And of course we don't have infinite mana to regenerate, so we might have to wait a little bit before we can actually start attacking, but we'll still play the Sentinel here. Alright, so we are in a bit of a precarious spot in that if our opponent finds removal for Gale Rider, we would just die on the spot. But if we find one more +1/+1 type effect, we can do some serious damage. Alright, looks like they have their own company. Also, if we pick up a Swamp for Sedge Sliver, that would also do the trick. Alright, opponent did not have a company apparently. Pick up Unclaimed Territory. So let's play Vial, and I guess we'll keep land in hand, just to represent having maybe some instant speed interaction here. Still don't think we have any great attacks, sadly. I guess we could try attacking with like 2 of our 6 power creatures, since there's a chance they respect the +1/+1 effect, and we should still have enough regeneration back to block. Alright, we're gonna block anyway. But we don't have to regenerate at least now. So pretty tense game here. Any top deck on either side could easily determine the outcome of the game. A removal spell on their side kills us. Another +1/+1 effect on our side probably wins us the game. Alright, they're gonna main phase company. Finds another Drogskol Captain. So now we're gonna need 2 +1/+1 effects essentially to break the board stall. But our opponent still doesn't have any good attacks. Vial on 3 can stay on 3, and the other one will put up to 1. Blur Sliver doesn't do anything, so I guess we can Vial that in end of turn. Not gonna bother attacking this time. We do have a Vial on 1, so technically speaking we could have another Gale Rider Sliver, so even if they pass the one we have in play, they might not make an all-out attack, because then they would be dead on the way back. So it's actually interesting whether or not we want to keep Vial on 1 just to represent Gale Rider, or if we put it up to 2 to have instant speed access to another +1/+1 effect. Alright, opponent finds all 4 Drogskol Captains, but I still don't think they can make any good attacks here. End of turn will Vial in Blur Sliver. Alright, untap. I think I will still put it up to 2 here. And Leeching Sliver, now that's an interesting draw. So that would allow us to make some attacks to get a bit of damage in, but we still need to make sure to regenerate. So our opponent's got 8 spirits right now, and we've got quite a few more than 8 slivers. So that means if we put a Leeching Sliver in play, we can afford to attack with 2 slivers to deal 2 damage. Alright, I guess that's good enough. So 2 slivers attack. Opponent loses 2. We're not too far from just attacking with everything to kill them with a Sliver's ability, but for now we'll attack like this, and they can regenerate themselves. I guess we could have attacked with maybe 1 or 2 more slivers, but I still wanted to make sure we had at least 8 back to block. I think next turn we'll send 1 or 2 more. Alright, Selfless Spirit, that's fine. So if we can get our opponent down to 12 and attack with everyone, would just drain them out with Leeching Sliver triggers. And if we just draw another Leeching Sliver, the game's over. Opponent makes some attacks. We've got plenty of blockers back, so this should not matter. Regenerate everything, and now an attack back with everyone actually kills them. Alright, sweet. So maybe our opponent got a little bit impatient there. If they waited, they might have been able to top deck a path to still win that game. If we top deck another Leeching Sliver, the game was over on the spot, so maybe that's why they felt like they needed to make a move. So how do we want to sideboard here? I don't hate Dismembers as a bit of interaction. Of course, doesn't line up well against the double Drogskol Captain, but it might be good enough. A Siphon Sliver is also interesting if we're in a racing situation, since outside of Sentinel Sliver, racing is going to be somewhat difficult. Don't think we need Diffusion Slivers, they're pretty light on removal generally speaking. Dismembers coming in. I could see the case for Siphon Sliver, and then maybe cut a Gemhide Sliver. Last cut shall be a Blur Sliver. I think we'll try this. Alright, so we're on the draw, and our hand looks okay. I've got an Ether Vial on turn 1 to help us empty our hand, Dismember as interaction. Double Mana Weft for more mana. So we're missing a bit of meat here. Could use some +1/+1 type effects, but I don't think we can mulligan this hand. We could Dismember the Noble Hierarch. I think we want to keep Dismember to kill the Drogskull captains. So for now we'll just play the Vial. Dismember also very important to kill Spell Quellers, which could otherwise be problematic. Of course, either Vial mitigates that somewhat, but they could still exile or collected companies. Alright, opponent with a pretty tame turn 2 here. And Siphon Sliver's not bad. So let's put in a Mana Weft. And end of turn we can Vial a Gale Rider Sliver. Noble gets in for 1, that's fine. And end of turn we'll Vial Gale Rider. Opponent could be keeping up Spell Quellers, so not too keen on just casting a 3-drop here. Can just let Ether Vial do the work. Alright, Mutavault's not bad. I think we'll just pass a turn here. Opponent did nothing with 3 mana. End of turn we can just put in a Mana Weft Sliver. If our opponent wants to play the draw go game, then we can just activate Sliver Hive and make a bunch of tokens. Mausoleum Wanderer. Into Drogskull Captain, that's a fine target for Dismember. So in response to the trigger, I guess we'll kill it. Alright, end of turn, activate Vial, put in Mana Weft. And then we can untap. I think we do put Vial up to 3 here. Predatory is a nice draw. Name Sliver. Just cast a Predatory Sliver. Activate Mutavault. Attack with everyone. And we can Vial in Siphon Sliver for lifelink. So this is going to deal quite a big chunk of damage, which buys us a lot of time. Now if our opponent brought in a card like Worship, we're going to need to find our Leeching Sliver. Opponent says go. Vial can stay at 3 here. Do we still want to make any attacks? Opponent could have a Collected Company here, which could produce 2 Lords, for example, which could be pretty painful. They could just be holding another Spell Queller, which we suspect they have in hand, which would give them a 2-3 blocker. Attack with a Siphon Sliver and Mutavault could be okay. And hope they don't have a great Collected Company. And then we can still activate Sliver Hive to make more tokens end of turn. Don't think we can afford to attack with our 2-powered creatures. Alright, let's hope they don't hit double Lord. Alright, there's Drogskull. And a second Drogskull. Well, that's unfortunate. Now the Wanderer gets a good block. So we lose our Siphon Sliver, get in for 3, gain 6. And now we're on the token plan with Sliver Hive. And then at some point we're hoping to find Satch Sliver or maybe a Leeching Sliver to finish them off. But we are in a bit of trouble. There's Supreme Phantom. Because we got them down to 8, they can't be as aggressive as they could otherwise be. Alright, no attacks. Let's make a token. Pick up a Swamp. It's going to be useful if we ever have a Satch Sliver. No need to play it out, I don't think. Can keep some information hidden. Just going to have to say go here. It's going to be Path to Exile on our Gale Rider Sliver end of turn. That's unfortunate. Alright. And a second Path to Exile, that's pretty rough. Alright. We're out of basic lands since we've got Swamp in hand, so this game's probably not going to go very well. If we didn't attack that one turn with our Mutavault and Siphon Sliver, we would have still had a Siphon Sliver in play, opponent would have been at 11, we would have been at 27. We would have been in a slightly better spot, but not by all that much. So this is an attack for 15. Yeah, that starts adding up. They can still make tokens with Moorland Haunt as well. So do we have any outs? Not sure. Another Ether Vial's not gonna cut it, so we'll just have to say go. They didn't activate Moorland Haunt end of turn, probably want to keep up Spell Queller for a potential Collected Company on our part. Birds of Paradise. So their hand is Spell Queller plus 1 unknown. They get in for 15 once again, put us down to 3. And yeah, I don't think we have any outs. Alright, there's a Leeching Sliver. So had we played Ether Vial last turn, it still would have only been up to 1, so still not enough to put Leeching Sliver into play, which is why I didn't bother, but probably should have, just in case. So I guess we'll cast this Leeching Sliver, see what happens. And there's Spell Queller. So I guess if we had a Vial on 2 instead of 3, we might have been able to get there, because Leeching Sliver, animate Mutavault, attack with everyone, drain them for 6, put them down to 2, and then get in a bit more damage with the unblocked creatures. It was closer than it seemed. Could have tried to bait with Ether Vial, but it would not have pulled the trigger. We're dead here. So on to game 3, do we want to make any changes? I don't think we do. Siphon Sliver, while not amazing, I could see being better than Blur Sliver. Alright, this seems like a keep. No Vial this time, but we can Verdant to get a Breeding Pool for Gale Rider. And we've got Urborg alongside Sedge Sliver. So I guess we'll need to find one of our mana producing slivers to get the Sedge Sliver in play to begin with, or one of our 5-color lands, which we have quite a few of. So I guess the 12 5-color lands, plus our 5 mana creatures, plus 4 Ether Vials, we have a pretty good chance of being able to put this Sedge Sliver in play before the game is over. No Mausoleum Wanderer to block our Gale Rider, and Dismember's pretty useful too. I think we're still playing the Mutavault here, so we'll attack for 1. And then next turn we can cast a pain-free Dismember thanks to Urborg potentially. And we're working our way up towards Collected Company as well. So a land is not a terrible draw, especially a 5-color land. And of course any sliver is a pretty good draw here too. It's gonna be Supreme Phantom, which I don't mind dismembering to clear a path for our flyers. Especially with a backup Dismember. Could pay some life to still activate Mutavault, so do we want to trade 4 damage for 2 damage? Probably actually. But under different circumstances, I could see just paying 3 mana for Dismember there instead of taking 4. Alright, opponent's stuck on 2 lands. That's a good sign for us. So we'll animate Mutavault and then put Ether Vial in play as well. So I kind of sensed like our opponent had a somewhat weaker hand, missing white mana. So we want to take advantage here, be as aggressive as possible. I guess they could have had a Rattle Chains, but that creature has fallen out of favor in the Spirits lists. Alright, 3rd land, but it's another Botanical Sanctum, so still no white mana. So probably doesn't change a ton in what they can cast. Gets them closer to casting Collected Company. Alright, there's Sedge Sliver, still can't cast it. So let's keep beating down with Mutavaults. Our draw definitely wasn't very explosive, so they could have easily punished us if they had a better draw themselves. Still waiting for a 4th land for Company, still waiting for mana to cast Sedge Sliver, although we will be able to Vial pretty soon. Alright, there's a white mana. So our opponent probably keeping up Collected Company here, which means I don't think we can afford to attack anymore. Alright, Mana Weft is not bad, so we can put that in with Vial, and then we can still tap the Gale Riders for mana, for maybe an instant speed Collected Company end of turn, in response to the opponent's Collected Company. I think that's better than Sedge Sliver. Opponent did nothing end of turn, so maybe holding on to Spell Queller instead. It's kind of weird that they did nothing with 4 mana though. Maybe they just have infinite Spell Quellers, in which case I think we still go for the Mana Weft play since we have Dismember to kill Spell Queller. So there's Spell Queller, and I think we Dismember here. End of turn so we can attack with whichever sliver we get. Alright, let's see what we get. And we get Predatory and Leeching. Seems good. And that should allow us to close out the game. I guess they could have a Path to Exile here too. But Vile's going to go up to 3, and we've got a Swamp in play. And our opponent packs it in. Alright, sweet, managed to beat Spirits in 3 games. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the play. Don't have any lands, so this is not going to work out. And I guess we'll keep this. I'll keep a Sliver Hive. Turn 2, interesting whether to play Sentinel or Predatory. I think I'm gonna go with Predatory here. Get in more damage. Play a Blur Sliver as a 3/3 next turn. Opponent on some sort of banned deck, could be Spirits. Instead, turn 2 Wall of Roots, so it could be some sort of Vannifar pod deck. And we did pick up land 4, so next turn we will get to Company. They get to soak up 3 damage, take 2 down to 18. So this Company is gonna have to hit something pretty good here, otherwise we could be in trouble. Don't have much in the way of interaction, but our opponent seems to be stuck on 2 lands. Alright, I think we're main phasing Company in the hopes of finding something good. We could also mana weft into Company, but then we have both our creatures tapped. So I think I would rather just do this. Alright, opponent's got a Deceiver Exarch in response. Tapping down one of our creatures maybe. And what do we find? Gale Rider could be useful. Don't think we need Diffusion. They're not going to have much in the way of removal. So Gale Rider plus Leeching could be good here. Get in the most damage. And then next turn we can play some more hasty Slivers with flying that drain the opponent for 1 when they attack. So pretty decent Company hit. Opponent's under quite a bit of pressure. Let's see what they can do here. And they pack it in, alright. So our opponent is on some sort of Deceiver Exarch pod deck, probably featuring Vannifar, would be my guess. So Dismember coming in. Warping Whale could be useful too at killing potential mana creatures from the opponent. And then I think that's about it. Don't want Diffusion Slivers, since they don't have much in the way of removal. Could see cutting a Blur Sliver. And the last cut shall be probably a Sedge Sliver. Yeah, sure. Alright, I think we have a keep. 1 land and a Vial, and a Dismember we can cast with 1 mana. And no turn 1 creature from the opponent, so no need to dismember anything. Next turn we can play one of our 2-drops and Vial in Gale Rider. Or we might dismember something, although I would like to keep Dismember for Vannifar. Yeah, I think we can let them keep the Wall of Roots. So I think we just Leeching Sliver here. And say go. Opponent keeping up all their mana, they could have a Court of Calling. And of course Wall of Roots, essentially tapping for 2 mana when it comes to Court of Calling, since you can make green mana and tap it. So it's pretty good there. We'll put Vial up to 2, and a mana wefts. So we could put 2 Predatory Slivers into play here. Or we might want to keep up Dismember, so our opponent can court for X equals 3, which isn't too devastating here. Can they have access to any flying creature? Not sure. I think we will just go with a double Predatory Sliver line, which is the most aggressive here. Don't have to put the second Predatory into play quite yet. Alright, opponent's gonna path the Leeching. Fair enough. So we could Vial in a Mana Weft Sliver and then tap it for mana to put in a Gale Rider. Is that better than just putting another Predatory into play? Probably. Search up our forest, I guess, since we have an Urborg. Put a Gale Rider into play and attack for 2. And then next turn another Predatory Sliver is gonna add up to quite a bit of damage. Alright, opponent's got a Scrib Ranger, 1/1 flying protection from blue, so actually gets to ambush our Gale Rider here. So yeah, they're definitely on the Vanifar build. Alright, so they got to absorb a bit of damage from the Gale Rider, that's okay. And there's Vanifar. So happy we still have our Dismember. Vial can stay at 2, I guess. We could also activate it, put in Predatory, put it up to 3. But I think Vial on 2 is going to be more useful, generally speaking. Let's put in Predatory. Attack with everyone. Opponent's down to 7, and we'll Dismember full cost. And pass a turn. Probably should have played our land in case of Sliver Hive. We might want to be able to have more lands in play, but our opponent packs it in. Alright, so pretty quick game here against the Vanifar pod. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the play. Do we want to keep a 1-lander, no Vial? Probably not. Alright, this is a bit better. Turn 1 Gale Rider, turn 2 Gemhide, turn 3 Company. Can lead to some good things. And we want to keep Predatory. Yeah, I think we'll keep Predatory on top. It's a reasonable draw. And our opponent reveals his Sphinx of Foresight, so they get to scry here. Not sure what deck plays Sphinx of Foresight nowadays. Probably some sort of combo deck. Opponent cycles double Street Wraith and Mishra's Bauble. Second Mishra's Bauble, so pretty full graveyard already. And no land, interesting. Alright, we'll just play this Gemhide Sliver over here. Attack for 1. And then next turn we might Company, we might play Predatory plus Leeching. We've got some options. And our opponent scoops it up, alright. Well, not sure what they were trying to accomplish, but we saw some Street Wraiths and some Baubles. Could be some sort of Death Shadow deck. Do we want Relic? Probably. Anything else? Like Dismember is probably okay. Although if they're on the combo side of things with no creatures, then Dismember is going to be pretty bad. Not sure about Diffusion Sliver. Again, if they're combo ignoring creatures, then Diffusion's pretty bad. If they are on removal heavy Death Shadow deck, then Diffusion Sliver is going to be okay. Probably just going to hedge my bets. Go with like 2 Diffusion Slivers and 1 or 2 Dismembers. Shave a Blur Sliver. Shave 2 Leeching Slivers. And take out Sentinel Sliver. Something like this. Yeah, this seems okay, and then we can adjust based on what our opponent shows us in game 2 here. Alright, opening hand with double Relic, only 1 land. Think we can keep, like a second land gives us Mana Weft, which can help us ramp. And we can always cycle Relic to hit our land drops. It's not ideal, I would prefer 2 lands. But Relic could be strong in the matchup. As we see another Sphinx of Foresight. Could also be a weird Living End deck, although I guess that doesn't make a ton of sense with Bauble in the deck as a card to cascade into, so who knows. There's Bloodstainmire. Name Sliver. Play Relic. So if they rely on any Delph creatures, Relic is going to be pretty useful. And there's a Thoughtseize. Takes away Mana Weft, trying to cut us off on mana. Let's target our opponent. And then I'm not sure yet if we're going to sacrifice this Relic or just play a second one. Mutavault's a good draw. Alright, I think we're just playing a second Relic here. And then I guess we'll use one of them. So a big Death Shadow could definitely be an issue, especially if they make it bigger than Dismember can kill. If we can, we want to keep up 1 mana in case of Kolaghan's command, so we can sack the relic and they won't be able to destroy it. So tapping out for a 2-drop is kind of sketchy, so I think we just pass a turn. Thought Scour is going to fill the graveyard nicely. Opponent casting Bauble. So now they have 4 cards in graveyard, so even if they go untap land, they wouldn't have enough mana to cast a significant delve threat. And if they fetch, we can respond with a relic activation. Opponent says go. Could sacrifice one of the relics, or we can just shrink down their graveyard. I think we're going to be patient here. Such Sliver to draw. Let's just say go. As much as I would like to hit my land drops, keeping their graveyard clean is pretty important too in the matchup. Prevent any Snapcaster mages from getting value. Any delve shenanigans. Might as well do this now. Force them to sack these fetch lands right away without having perfect information on whether or not they want to get them tapped or untapped based on the Death Shadow. I think I'm okay sacking one of the relics now. Pick up Unclaimed Territory. Opponent's got a pretty full grip here. Ether Vial to draw. That's a good one. Let's get that one out there. And still keep up mana to sack relic at any point. Opponent's probably holding a bunch of removal spells, or some delve creatures that they're unable to cast. Alright, Lightning Bolt going face. I did mean to activate Relic end of turn there before they got a chance to untap. Alright, Engineer Explosives on 1, not bad. And they're gonna sack it, so we'll sack Relic in response, so just a 1-for-1 at the end of the day. Alright. Vial is gone, but picked up a Cavern of Souls. So we can go Leeching plus Sinew. Do want to be careful not to overextend into any sweeper effects. They could be sideboarding cards like Anger of the Gods. We already saw Engineered Explosives. And this looks like a Fatal Push. Alright. And maybe next turn Snapcaster Fatal Push. Just hard casting Sphinx of Foresight. Alright, land is not bad. So unfortunately we don't have any green sources to cast a Collected Company yet. But I think we're gonna just try and bait out a potential Stubborn Denial with the Dismember here, and if it does happen to work, then we can just play some creatures, attack with Mutavault, and get in a ton of damage here. Alright, that happens. So now we can animate Mutavaults, play a Sinew Sliver, and get in for a bunch of damage. And then we don't have any actual green mana for Collected Company yet. So that's something we're looking for, but our opponent's already down to 5. So while they could cast some scary Death Shadows potentially, the Leeching Sliver could just burn them out. What is this? Anger of the Gods, that's okay. Mutavault being a pretty key card here. And more companies, but still no green mana. Alright, kind of seeing the drawback here of the 5-color lands not combining all that well with Collected Company. So if they have a Snapcaster Mage, animating Mutavault would be pretty bad. If we play Gale Rider, they can just Fatal Push it and block Mutavault with Snapcaster. I guess we'll just go Gale Rider plus Sedge Sliver here. And then hope to be able to cast these companies. Right, opponent is going to fetch. Let's see if they have the Snapcaster Mage here on Fatal Push. They do. They could have also waited and gone for Anger of the Gods instead. Alright, Sedge Sliver down. But Gale Rider is still pretty useful here. They've got 2 cards in hand, they're down to 3. So we could be in a worse position, all things considered. Alright, another set sliver, which doesn't do a whole lot here. Yeah, I think we animate Mutavault and attack. Hope they don't have more spot removal. It's gonna be Dismember on Mutavault, take 1 down to 2, and play a set sliver, which does have flying here, so still lethal next turn. Alright, let's see what they draw. Alright, it looks like they didn't have anything, maybe a Death Shed or a Delve creature, but was not going to help them block our flyers. So pretty strange game, kind of played it patiently, I think it paid off, that one big attack. Definitely got in a ton of damage. And then we were stuck with Double Collected Company, which we were unable to cast, but had we found one of our mana generating slivers, we could have been able to cast it, or just find one of our green sources, have a few of those in the deck as well. Sweet, I want to thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed this gameplay, and as always, have a nice day. I also want to thank all my patrons for being part of the channel, and you can become a patron yourself today and decide the topic of future videos over at patreon.com/LegenVD.